Hey everyone! So now that you've got your photo taken, it's time to get into Lightroom and do some editing. So let's get to it. So for this, we don't want to go crazy with edits. We are trying to represent this object as it is. So we're going to really be thinking specifically about white balance, exposure, and tones, and maybe playing with a little bit with the texture. So let's go ahead and take a look. So right now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually looking up here at my histogram, which again is a graphical representation of the tones in your images. So even if I wasn't able to see my image, I could see that there is a whole lot of dark areas in my image. And then we have some data in the light areas. It looks like I do have some areas that are too dark. They're so small that you can't even really see the indicator popping up, so I'm not going to worry about them. And I do have some areas that are too bright. And it looks like it's just in this little tiny reflections here. So we're doing pretty good with our exposure. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look at my white balance. So I'm going to pull up my color picker, and I think my white balance is looking pretty good. But again, you know, the color picker is basically you're telling the computer that this specific area should be neutral. It should be white, gray, or black, and there shouldn't be any extra colors in it. Now, so if I go ahead and click on this area where it's supposed to be white, this is the correct white balance. Now it feels a little bit cool to me, a little bit too cool, as in too blue. So personally, I'm just gonna go ahead and just bump it up just a little bit, just a tad. I barely, took it. So before my temperature was set at around 3200, it took it down to, I think it was like 27. But I just added a little bit back in. I did have a bit of, it was a little too green, so it did add a little bit of magenta, and I think this is looking really good already. Let's do a before. So you can see that it is quite warm here, and an after, and now we're looking pretty good. Okay, not too bad. Do I want to go a little warmer? Maybe just a little bit warmer. Just a little bit. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and get in here. So, I mean, I feel like maybe I should have lit my background a little bit more looking back. It's okay. I wasn't shooting tethered. I'm going to be kind to myself. I was also shooting videos for you guys, so I'm not going to beat myself about it too much. I tend to be a perfectionist, so that's something I'm really working on, is not beating myself up. But yeah, so just thinking of this, looking at this, I think I could have probably spent a little bit more time trying to light the background better, maybe moving these plants around. What's bothering me the most is the highlights down in here. I feel like they're taking my eyes away from what I want to be looking at, so that's definitely an issue. This class isn't about retouching or anything like that, so I'm not going to delve into that part for you guys. I do teach Intro to Photoshop and an Advanced Photoshop class where we do go into retouching and taking care of stuff like this. So, I'm not going to worry too much about it for you guys though. All right, so for the exposure, I did end up taking it up a bit already. I was working so hard to try to get rid of these highlights with my exposure that I actually underexposed too much when I took the image, so I did take my exposure up. And I'm not going to take it up now. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to work on specific tones with the tone curve. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So in this panel down here, we have what's called the tone curve. And this really helps you adjust specific areas of your tonality. So here we have the darkest, then the, I guess the shadows, then the darks, then we have the lights, and then the highlights. And this works in a couple different ways. You can either take these sliders, and as I slide them around, you'll see that this line here, this is the actual tone curve, this is changing. So I can just you know, really focus on certain areas. You can also actually click and drag. And you'll see that as I'm clicking and dragging on the little graph, the slider is moving as well. One more place, let me hit undo. You can also use what's called the TAT, the Targeted Adjustment Tool. This is kind of cool. When you click on here, let's say I want to make sure I'm just doing the widest areas. I can click here and drag up to take it up, or drag down to take it down. So this could be another way to doing it. 3 different ways, just because there's different ways to think about this. There's different ways that work for different people. So that's fine. So what I'm really worried about, my whites are pretty good. I really don't want to go too far up. Maybe just a tad, because I don't want to lose the texture, right? So we have some really great texture in here. I don't want to go so bright that the texture gets blown out. So I'm just going to go up just a little bit. And really, I think I need to take my dark areas up a bit. And so really I'm looking at this area, you know, my reflector was doing a great job of reflecting light back in, but I think it needs just a little bit more. So let's just take it up just a bit more. Nice. Okay, and the other part is right here in the eyes. Let's not take this to 800. Let's go 200. Okay, so we can see the eyes, but you can't quite see everything going on in here. So I'm actually gonna take the shadows up here just a little bit. All right, that's looking better. Let me do a before and after. Okay, so now you can really start seeing. Before, the darkness here was starting to, you know, smush into here. And now these edits might not be the exact same for you as they are for me. It probably, you know, it kind of just depends on what you shot and the, you know, the light and all that. But I just wanted to kind of show you guys the process of trying to do an edit where you're trying to show something realistically versus artistically, I guess you can say. Instead of going crazy with it, we're really just trying to show what the object actually looks like. And while I'm here, look at all these little dust bits. I cleaned this off and everything, but dust still ends up on there. So, and look at, you can see my whiteboard, my little reflector right there. So this is something that if I was an actual commercial photographer, if this was a shoot for a client, I would take this into Photoshop. I would actually retouch all of these little bits out. All right, so let's go ahead and go to fit. Okay, and this is looking better already. Not, you know, not having done much adjustments. And when I took the shadows and the darks up, it did take up my background too. So yay, I'm feeling happier about that. Now something else I want to go ahead and look at is my lens. I want to make sure that I have enable profile corrections on. This is going to take care of any distortions. Okay, so it looks like my lens had brought everything in and this just popped it back out for me. Great. And was there vignetting? Yeah, it looked like there's a little bit of vignetting that was also affecting my background. So, and I can actually play with this if I want to take, so that's bringing some in, that's taking some out. I think I am going to take it out. Okay, this feels a little bit lighter to go with my subject. It's a toy, it's fluffy, it's bright colors. Now, if you're noticing though that some of the colors are starting to wash out just a bit, so let's go ahead and pull a little bit of blacks back in. Oh, I don't want it to go right there though. I don't want the background to go with it. I just want it to really be on the fur. So let me think. I'm just going to do brush. All right. Uh-oh. Okay. This just changed. How fun. Okay, anyways. Always updates. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on brush, and I am just gonna go over the areas where I do want a little bit of darkness. Now, this is gonna be tough because, well, I'm not gonna go into that. I'm gonna hit Command plus a couple times, and I'm just gonna come in here, and actually before I do that, let me reset the exposure and take the blacks down just a bit. Okay, and let's see my size, yeah, my feather all the way up. Okay, actually down. Let's see. Okay, I actually want to get rid of that, so I actually want to get rid of that. Oh, interesting. Okay, delete mask 1. Huh, okay, cool. Oh, it reset my settings. Dang it. Okay, let's see. Blacks, darker. We'll just go with that for now. Alright, so I just want to do a little bit here. Maybe just a little bit in here. And brush around in here. Okay. So if I click on here, I can see exactly where I brushed and not quite enough. So earlier when I was like, oh, my brush, I have it set so that it looks larger so you guys can see it. But it makes it hard when I'm trying to brush things because I can't see exactly where I'm brushing anymore. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right. Let's zoom out a little bit, and I'm just gonna darken that just a little bit. Now this is a way I'm adding saturation by adding blacks. Sounds kind of weird, but that's just kind of how it works. I can add a little bit of saturation here, but it usually doesn't. It looks kind of funky sometimes. So you see how it's just too much. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now, what else do I need to do to this? Looking pretty good. Maybe a slight crop. I don't need all of this information up here or down here. So let's go ahead and click on the crop tool. And I'm just going to pull it down. What do you guys think? No, I don't want to pull that back. And I'm looking right up here as I'm cropping to see what the final crop's going to look like. And plus it gives you a nice like step back instead of being like having a huge image, being able to see it on its own a little bit. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Again, if I was going into Photoshop, I'd probably go a little bit further, but for this project, we're just trying to keep it pretty simple and to the point. I think I am going to add just a little bit of contrast just to punch it up just a bit. And you know, I was thinking about like the texture. Now the texture, let's go ahead and, you know, because we have this softness here. Come on. Okay. And I want to make sure it stays soft, but I do want you to be able to see that, you know, the little bits of it. Now I don't want to go crazy with this. The texture and clarity is something that newbies, I did it too, kind of go crazy on. So let's go crazy for a second. Okay, you're like, wow, that's really hyper realistic looking. Okay, but then that is just like, it's starting to look scary. So don't go completely crazy with it. Oh wow, and now it makes really these little hairs up here stand up. Oh, okay, I should take care of that. While we're here, while I can see them really well, let's take a look at, so there's this healing, it looks like a little band-aid area. And I don't think we covered this in the other chapters. This is stuff that you cover in one of the other classes. But I'm just going to do it anyways because it needs it, because it's really bugging me. So when you brush over, what it does is it takes a sample from another area. Now if this area isn't a good place for it to sample from, you can just click and drag this, and now it moves it to the area you want. So in this, because my background is two different colors, I want to make sure I'm matching the right background color. So let's go ahead and, uh-oh, I got too much of the horn, I think. But I want this to be in the darker area. Oh, that's not working well. And so this is where this actually becomes a little bit of an issue. It works okay for some stuff. But yeah, right now it's just not doing what I want it to do. And so this is the point when I would definitely take it into Photoshop. Yep. Oh well. Yeah. Yeah, it's too close. That little horn is really messing all that up. Okay, forget it. That's a Photoshop job. So let's go ahead and just reset these. It doesn't become as obvious now. It's really bugging me though. It's like I can't see anything else. It's okay. I won't worry about that for now. Let me just add a little bit of texture into here. The texture slider is actually a lot nicer than the clarity slider is. Alright, I think I'm going to stick with that right there. So it doesn't look like I did very many edits. Let's go ahead and do my before and my after. Okay, so like I said, this isn't about doing these huge edits that are, you know, gonna make it look all crazy or something. We're just trying to keep it looking realistic. Alright guys, so that's it. Can't wait to see your studio lighting project.